I think that Andre was probably the most deep, talented, and intellectual person that I've ever met in my life. I knew Andre only for about 3 years, but in that amount of time, it seems like I'd known him forever. He told me stories about his life and about so many different people and experiences and cultures that he knew. And honestly, it's very difficult not to be inspired by someone like that, who had this life filled with so many different adventures and love and loss and language and culture and just everything that makes life meaningful. Um, I think if you asked anyone about Andre, uh, they would probably say that he was brilliant, um, had a fantastic sense of humor, and was a very deep and profound person. Um, and I think it's really rare to find someone who can be profound yet have this amazing capacity for humor. And I think that Andre definitely had both of those things. He was hilarious. He was really witty and ironic and sarcastic, and he was joking all the time in such a mischievous way. It was amazing. He loved to laugh, and you really couldn't help but laugh at some of the things that he said and did. And he did this in all languages too. It's not like he was just doing this in one language. To joke in Russian is something that takes a native speaker. But whenever we were in a taxi or at a restaurant or, on the street, it was hard to leave without him just cracking a joke that at the driver or the waitress or to whoever, and it always landed well. He would always make people laugh. And I think that this was something really, really special about him. Um, I think that he was an extremely passionate person, and he seemed to feel everything so deeply. Um, the moment I met him, I was really intrigued by his humor and his intelligence and just his really deep interest in whatever he was studying at the moment. And it was always something different. The main themes were politics and culture and language, but he had a deep interest in many things, and he seemed to know everything about everything. He was always studying to find out even more. He would research and read about politics and issues in Italy, Bosnia, Kyrgyzstan, so many places, Ukraine, and he would really dig into these topics, like motives for war, religious issues, regional politics, land issues in Odessa, language issues. It seemed like when he did anything, he did it really well, and he did it genuinely. He was good at everything, and he was very intelligent. He read more than anyone that I've ever met. Everywhere we went, everything we did, he would always have a book with him about politics or conflict studies or culture. And when he wanted to break from these serious topics, I think that he would always have some detective novel in French. He loved detective novels and mysteries, and he read these occasionally when he was taking a break from more serious subjects. And he would also pause, and stop and have a conversation about anything interesting that he came across in these books. He really dug to the bottom of every issue, every question, and even if he found an answer, he would revisit it later to see how his own perspective changed. In terms of his personal career and professional life, he really did a lot, and I think that he had I think his work had a really big impact on a lot of the regions and countries that he that he worked in. Um, he went to Bosnia during the war, and when he described these stories from this time to me, I was always so surprised because it was clear that he knew this culture and its politics as deeply as he did his own. You know, he showed me Bosnian songs and poems, and he translated things from Bosnian to English that made it seem like he was a native speaker. He was like this in Russian too, and Ukrainian, Italian, German, even though he wasn't, this was not his favorite language. Um, and, you know, his native language of French, and even my native language of English. He was so funny in all of these languages, like I said. And I just remember being very impressed by his knowledge of the fundamentals of these languages and the nuances of them as well. You know, some like humor and things like that. He also taught journalism in Kyrgyzstan, and when he talked about this time, you could tell that he really, really enjoyed teaching his students. I think that his teaching here had a great impact. Um, he would smile when he talked about it, and you know, get this sparkling in his eyes, and he would tell me about, you know, how much he liked some of his students, how interesting the culture was, how, you know, all about the people there that he met and loved. And, you know, I can only imagine him being a fantastic teacher. Um, when we met in Severodonetsk, he would often help me and tutor me in Russian, and he would have me translate articles and explain them to him in Russian, just for practice. And it was kind of intimidating, actually. You know, he was quite strict, but it was clear that he really cared about what he was doing, you know, about teaching someone something that's going to help them in their future. And I think that he probably did this in Kyrgyzstan as well. You know, he pushed his students to be the best that they could possibly be, and expected their very best effort, I think. Uh, in terms of journalism, he explained to me that it was really important to understand the fundamentals and basics of any story that you're covering in journalism, and to never add your own bias or your own perspective to it, if that makes sense. You know, don't frame it in a way that is going to be harmful. Um, and I think that this seems like an obvious thing for journalism at first glance, but if you think about it, a lot of people don't do this. You know, many people fail to do this or don't care enough to put the time and effort in to do it right. And I I can't imagine this kind of person getting along well with Andre. You know, I think that this was something that really bothered him. Uh, Being, you know, if someone did not care about the issues, um, and the world around them, I think that this would be really problematic for Andre. He didn't like this at all, almost as much as he didn't like being told what to do. He also worked at Red Cross, so when he worked as a spokesman for the Red Cross in Kiev, he always described this to me as a really big highlight in his career. He'd worked for the Red Cross before also, but you know, very soon after he got this position, um, as spokesman, there was an incident with Russian cargo coming into Ukraine, I believe, or something like this, that made international headlines. And Andre had to give interviews and speak for the Red Cross in a few different languages, and for a lot of different international um, media agencies. Uh, so I asked him once, you know, how did he manage to do this without being nervous? And he said, just think and speak slowly and make people actually listen to what you're saying. Like, it was just a simple thing for him. You know, it came so naturally to him. And I didn't understand how he did this so well, but he always spoke so calmly and accurately and intelligently. And he just, he seemed like he was never nervous, never questioning himself. So another big point in his career that probably had a great impact was when he worked for the OSCE in Lugansk and in eastern Ukraine. So this is probably what he spoke most to me about because, we met in eastern Ukraine. We met in Severodonetsk, and this was something that we both really cared about. He served as a political officer for the OSCE in Lugansk, and everyone that I talked with on that team viewed him as absolutely brilliant. I've heard from so many different colleagues how knowledgeable he was about the conflict and regional politics. Everyone came to him with questions concerning political issues in the region or language or, anything about the conflict at all. He knew so much about. And I think that he was probably really a great asset to this team because he had such an ability to connect with people on a very deep level. And even he told me how much he learned just from informally speaking to Ukrainians and also, some of the separatist leaders in the meetings. They knew him very well because he spoke Russian. And his Russian was so great, so he really needed a translator. And I think that his ability to speak Russian really added to his understanding of the political culture in Lugansk because the conversations were always in the native language of, the culture there, not translated. And I think that this probably allowed for a lot deeper understanding, human connection, and just really meaningful communication. Also, being a trained and professional journalist, he knew how to ask the right questions. He had the unique ability to understand the fundamentals and the motives of the conflict and political issues in the region. And he knew how to write about these issues and talk about these issues in a really objective and accurate way. I think in terms of his career, he had a huge impact on the regions that he worked in, and anyone who worked with him is would probably share the same opinion, that he was brilliant, that he knew a lot about internal issues, and he really brought a lot to the table in terms of work life and had a very big impact. So I think André also had a huge impact on the people that he met in his life. I know that he impacted my life in a way that I can't even convey very well. But, from the moment I met him, I was really inspired by him and wanted to live a life like he'd lived. He'd done so many things, like I said before. He'd known so many people. He learned so many languages. And I feel like with those languages came a deep understanding of cultures and histories and people. And I think that he opened for himself these doors to so many different ideas and cultures. And in a way, I think he did this for me too. He taught me without even trying to teach me, to delve deeply into whatever subjects that you're interested in and to try to fully understand it completely, to ask questions and be interested and open to ideas from other perspectives, and just to go and do whatever it is that you want to do or are interested in and don't hold back. I think that this is what he did. When he left from Switzerland, he told me that he thinks that it was partly because he wanted more, he wanted to learn more and experience other places and people. And, I think a part of it was also he was a little bored and not satisfied maybe with a normal life, seems like he just always wanted to dig deeper into other ideas, other countries, and examine languages and cultures and politics, and to learn as much as he could, but also to understand and connect with people. I think that new ideas and interesting people are, and smart people, he really liked intelligent people, are probably what drove him. You know, he loved having deep conversations about politics and personal issues that shape who we are. You know, what are our experiences? What have we been through? What kind of, you know, what kind of good things have we been through? What kind of tragedies have we overcome? And how does this affect us, and shape who we are? You know, he would always say that he hopes to see me again in this life. And, you know, every time I would leave to go back to America and you know, leave Odessa, he would say, I'm sure he got this from an Italian song, it's better to leave each other than to have never met. And it's like as if our next meeting was never certain. And I think that this must have come from the fact that he knew so many different people in different stages of his life and experienced so much, that he learned to love people in this way and enjoyed so intensely the time that he had with him. You know, he never took it for granted. You know, over good food, over good wine, good music, and conversation. You know, he really enjoyed. He knew how to have a good time. He knew how to enjoy someone and learn about them and understand them in a way that a lot of people don't. You know, a lot of people don't take these important and special relationships well. You know, they take them for granted, and I think that he never did that. And I think in a way he sort of taught me to love people in this way too, as if it could be the last time we saw each other. You know, we were at really different stages in our lives, but he really connected with me and with everyone who knew him, it seems, just by sharing, you know, deep personal thoughts and experiences. In terms of his personal life, you know, it seemed like he told me enough stories for 2 or 3 lifetimes. He really did a lot. He loved a lot of different people that had a great effect on him, and he experienced so many different things. Like I said before, this fact about Andre was very inspiring to me. You know, he told me so many unbelievable stories. Unbelievable stories. You know, he played basketball for a professional basketball team in Switzerland. He was a journalist. He studied sociology. He'd been to Russia and Ukraine and Italy, to the US, you know, to so many places around the world. You know, one of the first stories he told me was about his involvement in protests over the housing crisis in Switzerland in the 90s, I believe. You know, I think it was in the 90s, I'm not 100%, but he squatted in apartments, in these huge, extravagant apartments in Switzerland for months and months, I believe, to protest the housing crisis there in this organized and kind of radical way. You know, he was very passionate. He went he went hang gliding in the Swiss Alps. He was in the Swiss Army for some time. You know, he quit the Swiss Army. He met and knew so many incredible people that had a great impact on him. You know, he met Hunter S. Thompson at a journalism event, and he knew better than anyone how to describe a person and kind of bring them to life and describe their most prominent characteristics to a point that you would feel like you knew them, you know? I was always amazed by this. You know, he slept in bomb shelters. He lived in countries where there were ongoing conflicts, and he experienced so many things, so many great things, and so many negative things that it's really hard to fathom, you know? Sometimes, though, it would be really difficult to believe, you know, what he was saying. It seemed so movie-like and unbelievable, you know, like what real person experiences these kind of things and can tell a story about them in such a captivating and passionate way, you know? And I think it was even more inspiring for me, you know, after he passed away. I met so many of these people that were part of these unbelievable stories that he told me. And it was clear and immediate. It was like immediately clear that he was telling the truth about all of these things, you know, and that everyone viewed him as highly as I did. You know, they really loved him and they welcomed me with open arms. And, you know, I think to meet all of his family and loved ones and these people that knew and experienced and were around during these times and had, you know, been a part of this life that he lived was really one of the most special and meaningful experiences that I've had. You know, there's so much to say about him. I think that everyone would say that he was a really brilliant man and, you know, so intelligent, so deep, so understanding, and could connect with people. You know, I just feel really lucky to have known a person like this in my life.